The Ukraine update on the Ukraine on the 18th of August 2023. I don't speak the language in Ukraine or any of those languages. I can only speak English and try to be as easily understood and use good diction as I can. The Ukraine war is over in effect. There's a bit of straggling, okay? Originally, NATO moved in and decided to take Russia out, take Putin out, have their big corporations grab all the resources in Russia through a puppet government. They wanted to put a puppet government, which Zelensky is, into Ukraine. Much of the software for the government of Ukraine is already controlled by American corporation BlackRock and others. They had plans on grabbing all of that land, all of that oil, all of those resources, and monetizing it and making it into a big float on the New York Stock Exchange. That was the plan, and they were going to fight the Ukraine war to the last Ukrainian soldier. They've done that. They've turned Ukraine into a graveyard. The heartbreak among parents of people, boys and all that must be outrageous. There was no effort made to settle it. The United States, through Victoria Nuland, brought down the democratically elected government in 2014, which was allowing everyone have their share, guaranteeing no military alliances, and fair play for everyone in the Ukraine to live and let live with Russia and the West, all having a bit of a say, but letting Ukraine do what it does well, producing food and all of that. They decided to grab everything. They decided to destroy Putin. They decided to push their cultural Marxist woke Joe Biden Democratic Party Sleepy Joe agenda on Europe and the rest of the world. They didn't take into account that that part of Europe has been at war for centuries and millennia. Okay, remember about 14 to 15 years ago, iodine tablets to combat nuclear fallout were allocated to the Irish people. I don't know what. There's nothing now. There's nothing now. And yet Greenham Common is only across the water. If a nuclear war breaks out, Greenham Common in Britain is probably going to be hit. And the wind today is blowing not so much from the east, but it does sometimes blow from the east. It has certainly blown right over Antrim and that area, but sometimes it blows that it come direct this way. Yet the Irish government doesn't give a hoot about us. All it wants is its woke, cultural Marxist, green, windmill, electric cars, and other old baloney. Or baloney, that's to use a mild word. Now the situation is, NATO is losing heart. They realise they're not going to win. Several commentators have made the same point. This was handled badly. It was handled in a vicious way by Britain and America and the European Union. They wouldn't let Zelensky settle. They wouldn't let him settle. They're not going to get back the Crimea, in my opinion. I'm sure I'll be et alive if I'm wrong. And they're not going to get back the two eastern provinces, and Putin's going to hold that. There's a threat of Poland entering the war to take a lump of Ukraine, and they're members of NATO. If they are attacked, if Poland goes into Ukraine and a Russian soldier fires a shot, all of NATO has to enter the war, and you then have World War III with severe nuclear weapons. Russia will win the war on the ground with the aircraft, the missiles, but when it comes to nuclear weapons, who knows who'll win? Do any of us want to live with a notice on the radio that there's a cloud of nuclear fallout coming our way in Ireland? The Irish people are partly to blame for not standing by good solid conservatives and good standard Irish traditional values and our neutrality, and allowing this type of a quasi-neutrality we have where we're neutral but the United States and the rest of them get priority treatment. Used to be all is said, and I think there's something to it, that when Knock Airport was being built, the Americans threw in a few extra euros or dollars on the grounds that the airport runway was left a certain length. I used to see nothing wrong with that, but as matters developed, I begin to see that things have shifted, and the putting out of Trump that was trying to bring peace and putting in Biden was all part of this vicious woke cultural Marxist green agenda, which is to be put down and defeated at all costs, politically and economically and every other way. Right now, Zelensky may keep fighting. It's said that the Ukrainians are going up into the western part where there's not too much going on and conscripting young lads, and that their people are hiding them. They don't want to go. Now, my advice to any young man who doesn't want to fight is do not join the Ukrainian army or any military. You are walking into a meat grinder. You can do nothing at this stage. It's all over. They may be allowed to keep Kiev, and if Poland stays out of it, you may get a rump state left in Ukraine. Probably Putin will only allow it if it's not part of NATO. And I would be against it joining the EU either, because there's not much difference in the EU and NATO. Right? Austria is supposed to be a neutral country. It's not really neutral as such either. Now, the thing about it is this, and it has to be remembered very carefully. There's nothing young people can do, only get out. I understand Germany has 1 million of them. Get out, bring whatever few shillings you have, and go to the dole office there and get something to keep you going. This will pass. I would say 2 years is not long in a person's life. I would say in 2 years' time, this will be over. I think that there'll be, I don't know what's going to happen, because the West would have liked to pump in money to build up a new independent Ukraine and have their corporations grab everything, particularly BlackRock, and is it something Street or whatever it is anyway, there's a few of them there, and grab all, and that's not working out. They may still have a wee bit in Western Ukraine, but the money to rebuild Ukraine would be enormous, and most people who left it never want to go back. I have found the Ukraine people to be good people. That is my experience of them, and that's very sad for them. But they're just in a bad place, and they have been mismanaged. Imagine being a young lad in an army fighting for Ukraine and having Biden and Victoria Nuland calling the shots. Imagine that. And Boris Johnson and the British government. Imagine that. Now, there are several retired generals on there, and I don't have my laptop, it's getting fixed, and I might post a link. Several retired patriotic American generals who are saying the same as I am saying. It's over. You've got to get used to it. Your cultural Marxist woke baloney NATO is wounded. You're not going to expand anymore. You have a risk of nuclear war. You and I, no matter what part of the world you're in, you are at grave risk. It's expanding into Africa, where people who are suppressed there for years are rising up against the French and trying to get rid of them when they see the weakness that's going on. The economies of Europe, Germany and Europe, are bad. Ireland is still struggling on. The American debt is beyond belief. And actually, Russia, the Russian ruble, has come down a lot. It's 100 to the dollar. So even Russia is struggling. But I believe that Russian people will be able to come together because they don't have the problems of courts intervening or anything like that. It's what Putin says will happen. And I think China will survive. I don't think it will collapse. I don't think it will. I don't think that'll happen. Now, there's also a war building up over Taiwan, and America is putting law through Congress to start a war with China. That is the reality. We'll deal with this again. But for now, people of Ukraine, when they come looking for your children, get a spade and wallop them with it. Do not let your children go to any war. It is not patriotic. It's just pandering to the crowd of woke, cultural Marxists, AOC Cortez, Nancy Pelosi, and all of them screwballs, and old day and senile sleepy Joe Biden. That's all it is. And Boris Johnson, that couldn't mind himself when he was in office, went over to stop this. And Ursula von der Leyen, just a puppet for America, a German puppet. Europe itself is under strain at the moment, and we have a government in Italy that's anti-EU, and we have Poland going to have a referendum, which I'll deal with soon, about the whole thing and the whole green old nonsense. The green agenda, of course, will cripple any country and is doing so. So for that That's my advice. I'll speak clearly again. If you're in Ukraine and there's talk of you being conscripted into the army or joining the army, run away, get into Germany, get into Poland, get out of it. Do not put your life on the line for any more. The graveyards are full. They're digging up World War II graves and sinking them more to make place for unfortunate Ukrainian soldiers, and some of them are in hospital and they're mentally damaged and all of this. It's time to call it off. Negotiation was a way forward. I believe Trump would have negotiated, but that wasn't a sexy thing to say. Well, I can say it now and let the lefties come on now and tell me where I'm wrong. They're going to have to negotiate anyway. And they'll negotiate the eastern provinces of Donbass and that other one for Russia. Russia will not give up the Crimea, and Russia has launched the summer offensive by Ukraine was an abysmal failure. Russia will not stop bombing Ukraine, and many American generals who are patriotic people, retired, all say Putin could have clattered Ukraine long ago, but he doesn't want to do that. He thought he'd get what he wanted, and this is being mismanaged. Have nothing to do with them. A crowd of rascals, every one of them in America and in Britain and in the EU, have nothing to do with them. And they'll not get a war. America cannot fight a war. It has no industry. It takes 3 years to get anything up to make any ammunition or make it. It has no industry. It kept the F-16 fighter planes away from Ukraine when it could have used them. And now it's given them at Christmas, by the way. Well, it's a bit late. It's too little, too late. Folks, thumbs up if you agree with me. Thumbs down. Do not have anything to do with the Ukraine military or Zelensky. He's just a film star. That's all he is, dancing to the tune of NATO, and NATO is a busted flush. And the country ahead of it, the United States, is a busted flush. It can't get people to lend to it anymore. Good luck. Give me a thumbs up, as I say, or a thumbs down. Bye. Thank you very much.